What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a special edition of the Wrestling Junkies Podcast. I'm Eric, Mr. Cincinnati Robinson, and as always, I am joined by the podcast dad himself, Chris Hoops. Hoops, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. We are going to have a fantastic interview today with, I think, some of the unsung heroes of
Yes,
the wrestling world, a referee. So I'm excited to get this perspective from the wrestling business.
of course, yes. Our next guest is a decorated referee with 18 years of experience. He is also the host of the Heat Wrestling Podcast. Please welcome referee Tony S. Tony, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm doing great, gentlemen. Again, it's a pleasure to be here on your show, and I'm ready to rock and roll.
Awesome. Well, we love talking wrestling with everybody that wants to talk wrestling with us. So let's get right on into it. We usually kick these questions off. Wrestling is a cadre of superheroes and supervillains, and they clash. And you are the officiant of that chaos. But we're going to take it way back here. Tell us about some of your earliest memories of pro wrestling.
My earliest memories began, ironically, back in '93 when the wrestling world was not what it was today. I was going to a convenience store, and I was 7 years old, had no idea what wrestling was, and I went to the convenience store and I saw a WWF magazine, and it had Hulk Hogan on the cover. This was after
Yeah.
WrestleMania 9. And after that, I was like, okay, what is this? I want to know more about this. And ever since then, it was full throttle basically into wanting to learn more about wrestling and seeing if it could, maybe come to our town and to go, and that's where it started.
Love that.
Who were some of your favorites growing up?
Oh man. So when I started, it was, a little bit of WWF and then WCW, and then later on we went to ECW. So back then, standard good guy. So, Hulk not necessarily, but I was more into the Razors and, even Diesel when he was cool. Shawn Michaels had a little something. Of course, Bret Hart, Owen. So I was into that. And then going into, WCW, Sting captured my eye, really, and the Macho Man Randy Savage for sure.
Nice. Okay. So what inspired you to become a referee? We know there's so many different moving parts within the wrestling industry, but what drew you to this particular role?
It's one of those things where you're not really certain about the path you're going to be on until you're actually on that path. One of my best friends, even playing No Mercy, way back in the day, we would create somebody called Mr. Referee. I would even I would go to middle school in referee attire. Yes, I did that. Uh, I'm not ashamed of it either. But
That's all for you.
I would, I'd referee, basketball games and stuff like that. And I went to a, local independent event in my town, and I'm sitting in I think it was the first event that I had ever gone to, and I was by myself, and I was sitting in the crowd, and I was in the ring. I was like, I think I could. I don't know if I could wrestle, but I think I could referee. I think I could do that. And I met up with somebody, my one of my trainers who had lived the next town over, and that's when it started. But it was basically, it was something with that, I think I could contribute positively to that if I could just get my foot in the door.
Nice. So what does training specifically for a referee look like as compared to a wrestler?
So for me, I started training back in 2004. So in the beginning, you did the bumps with just like all the wrestlers would. So, you do your standard, flat back bumps. You do, take your clotheslines and your hip tosses, and, you do all of your normal wrestler stuff. And then for referees, at least when I was started, you would do practice drills as far as referees go. You do practice drills, positioning drills, and then you would go into test matches or practice matches.
Mm.
Do you have any, you know, pre-match rituals? Like, how do you prepare to go in there and referee a match?
Um, I go into it never. No match no match repeats itself. Every match is a little bit different. So if I need to, depending on what time I get there, I do a little stretching, but I kind of just get my mind mentally right for what I'm about to do. And I kind of get myself into the mindset of, okay, all right, what does this match want from me? And to me, like you had said, we're all, referees are, moving part, perhaps the ultimate moving part. We're trying to keep that sports feel of sports entertainment part.
Mhm.
And so, for me, I want to know, okay, I need to know, okay, who am I working with? Who's my competitors? What do they want from me? And then that's how it goes. I kind of get my mind right as to, okay, this is what I need. And then once you step through that curtain, you're on.
Very nice. Very nice. So how do you build a rapport and communicate effectively with wrestlers during a match, especially, as an indie ref traveling from promotion to promotion? I'd have to imagine sometimes, a match that you're working is probably the first time that you've had an interaction with a wrestler. Is that fair to say?
No, that's fair. The good part about our region, we kind of know 90% of the time, each other, but there's always that 10% where, new talent comes in. Or even as a referee, if you're going outside of the region, then that percentage
Yeah.
that's flipped. So you're 90-10 the other way, where you have no idea what this talent is. But communication is just the same. It's not about me, it's about the talent. So what can I do to accentuate their positives and bring something out of them, just with the little things that I can do? Sometimes a wrestler may, want to, if I'm doing a count and they think that the match, they had the match won, maybe they want to yell at me, or
Mhm.
or I can, we can have a back and forth. But it really just, when it's communication, you just go in with an open mind and a willingness to work.
So, in 18 years in the business so far, have you ever run across like a language barrier with a talent from overseas or just from another country? How do you work through that?
I haven't gone through that yet. But that's yet. That will happen
Yeah.
eventually. But that's okay. Sometimes that does happen with language barriers, but that's where, your groups and, your colleagues that, may have
Mhm.
worked with them in the past before, have them help you out. But, wrestling's a universal language.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
Yeah.
is. Speaking of universal language, so you are the host of the Heat Wrestling Podcast. What inspired you to pick up the microphone?
It was one of those things where, so I've done, public speaking throughout my lifetime. So I've
Mhm.
done that. And a couple of my friends who had gone to shows, they had picked up a podcast, and I would occasionally fill in for them or be a guest for them. And I had, somebody reached out to me, wanted to do a podcast for, with him, and I'd done that. And then, things, real life, as 90 as it always does, real life comes in the way of things
Yeah.
sometimes.
Mhm.
And then, he went off to do, his thing, and I'm still doing my thing. And I was like, you know what? Let me see if I can give this thing a shot. So, I mean, again, I can't complain. Wrestling takes me through many avenues in life. So,
Yeah. Has hosting a podcast influenced or evolved your perspective or perceptions of the industry in any way?
um, what it's done is it's given me an extra tool in my box. So, I mean, I'm not just, a referee. I'm also a producer at live events for one, organization. and another organization I do, hype videos. I do their graphics. So sometimes I'm on commentary. So you really get to go into many different fields of wrestling where you never know. I mean, I could be in this field for 20, 25 years and then maybe go into a producer role or maybe go into a commentary role. But, you never know what the future holds. But, it's always good to have that because, they always tell you, always bring your gear because
Yeah.
you never know. You never know. You might have a commentator might be out. Hey, can you throw on we want to throw on the cans and be a commentator? And, all right, sure, fine. And sometimes you just got to be ready for anything.
I like it.
How challenging is it to do that, to go into commentary cold?
It happens. I mean, I did that. I did commentary, cold, and for me, it's really not that difficult
Mhm.
to do commentary cold. It's like when you're a kid and you play 2K or you play WWE games way back when you were a kid and you wanted to commentate over the matches because you felt that you were better. And so
Yeah.
sometimes, and you don't even realize that that's practice, but it is.
Yeah.
And so, it's to me, it's not that difficult going into commentary cold as long as you have a good dance partner.
Fair.
So, how has the role of a referee evolved in 18 years? I know that's a pretty loaded question, but how have you seen the change happen?
Well, I'm actually I actually made a mistake. The the bio on my ex is wrong. I'm going close to 20. So um, the evolution of a referee, it kind of ebbs and flows where
Mhm.
you know you kind of go in, you want to implement your own style, but at the same time, you don't want to be that big of a focus, that big of a boisterous figure. So I think between when I started in '05 to now, I think that there's a progression, and I think it's a positive one with not just the indies, but with the professional referees, where it seems as though they are. It's almost like as fans, we were told not to recognize them. It's almost like they don't matter.
Yeah.
But now, over the
Yep.
last couple of years, we know who they are and their figures too. And it might inspire somebody to be like, you know what? I want to do that. Like, that's possible for me. And there's a lot of avenues that can be open with things like that. And I also think that at the time, like, and I'll be honest with you guys, I'm, I'm not a small individual. So that to me, we don't want referees to be tall or anything. So
Yeah.
that in and of itself is like, okay, I'm kind of bucking the system, but
Mhm.
it works. And so, now you have to look at it where, okay, for me, what can I do to still be me, still have a presence, and at the same time add to the match? And that's something that can be really difficult. But I think the evolution allows, and especially with UFC mixed martial arts, their referees, where it's more of a sports feel where you have to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Back then there wasn't anything regarding, first aid, CPR training for referees. Now there is. So that's something to where, most referees, some referees now are CPR first train certified. That's something that's important. Some referees speak more than one language. So there's a lot of referees who are doing big things out there, who are diversifying their skills to try to get to the next level.
Sure.
Whereas back then, you just need to be a referee, and maybe 10 or 15 years down the road, maybe it can be something else. But now it's like, okay, you
Yeah.
can be this, but you can add to this while you can still be that. So there's a lot more additions of the job where maybe back then there wasn't an opportunity to.
Yeah, yeah. So over the last 20 years, how if you can, give me the opportunity to look back at your career here, what would you say that you have done to add to your craft and evolve it, in addition to the podcast and creating that additional skill for yourself and creating that additional value?
I think for me, the big thing about me is seeing as a referee as far as longevity purposes. I knew that me being a wrestler was completely out of the question, and I was okay with that. But I saw myself as a referee, and I didn't really have an end date of how I started when I was 19, so I really didn't have like an end date. But I just wanted to put in my craft, I think, as a referee, and to establish myself. And I think I've done that, but I still have it in the back of my mind that there's always more to do.
Sure.
Yeah. What would you say are 2 or 3 qualities that you think are essential to be a successful referee?
We kind of already punched in on it, but if you want to get really down and dirty, which we could,
we did.
We kind of have to. This is why we're in the wrestling business, kids.
Yeah.
I think for me, one of the qualities to be a good referee is you kind of, for me, and it's a big thing. I tell the new referees coming up, never forget why you fell in love with the business. I think that that's a big thing because it kind of keeps you grounded, and it keeps you in that, okay, this leads me to this. Like, it's all part of a journey. So I tell them, never forget why you fell in love with the business. Once you lose that love, it's over. And you hang on to that because there's a reason why, like, you guys, there's a reason why you watched wrestling when you were young, and now you became, you're doing a wrestling podcast, you're contributing, I'm doing the same thing, but you never lost that love, or if you did one time, you got it back. So don't lose that. Another thing for me is don't be afraid to be your biggest critic. Watch your stuff back. I have some of my footage from 10, 15 years ago, and some of it I think is good, and some of it I think could be better. But don't be afraid, when you're in that one-on-one time, don't be afraid to be your own biggest critic, because there's always something to improve on match after match. You're only as good as your last match. The third thing, I think, ultimately, it's communication. You gotta listen. You have to listen to, the people that have wrestled. You never know. Some of the people that you're gonna be in the ring with may have done, enhancement talent for WWE or television, may have gotten signed before, may have been on national TV. So you've got to listen to them, because they, not just the wrestlers, but other referees as well. And a side note, don't be afraid to ask questions. There's no such thing in my book. If you really want to know, there's no such thing as a stupid question if you really want to know. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask it, because that could be the key as far as what you're having trouble with. But you always have to be honest with yourself too. And there's, again, there's going to be people that are going to discourage you, and they're going to tell you, you shouldn't be doing this. You have no business being in. You have no business doing this. You shouldn't be in here. But if you really are passionate about it, there's nothing that anybody can do to stop you. And that's where the falling in love with the business comes in.
Very well said. Very well said. And very sound pieces of advice. I mean, we've been doing this for a little over a year now, and yeah, I think we still feel like kids at heart as we do this. It's kind of our favorite part of a long, stressful work day. So definitely get that. Yeah. So as we were doing our research for this interview, we came across what looked to be a pretty cool moment for you. I'm going to pull this picture up. You had the opportunity to referee a match between Trevor Murdoch and Nick Aldis for the 10 pounds of gold. Tell us about the experience. What was it like when you got that call, and how were the nerves in that moment?
I still have the nerves, and it's been 3 years. It was so that was down in Charlotte for the Gathering. The Gathering is a 3 or 4 day wrestling convention. They bring talent in from all over, autographs, stuff like that. They have it every year down in Charlotte. It used to be the NWA Fan Fest before they took it over. And so this was the Gathering. This was the Gathering 3 years ago. And normally the world's heavyweight champion, the NWA whoever the world's heavyweight champion is, would bring their own referee. And there was a lot of debate as to when they were going to show up. Camille, who was the NWA World Women's Champion, was there. She was defending her championship as well. So Nick Aldis and Camille came in, and I had gotten word that he did not bring his own referee. So a lot of people were vouching for me to have that match. So I found out probably a few hours before then that it was going to be me officially. And I talked with so I get the call, and I'm down in the locker room, and Nick Aldis is there, and Nick wants to know who the referee is for the match, and it's me, and he says, "Have you ever done instructions before?" And I said, "Yes," knowing that I've never done instructions in my life. But I said, "Yes, I've done instructions." He said, "Okay, we're going to do instructions here, and this is the way you're going to do it, blah, 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 blah." And I said, "Okay." So we do the show, we get to the deal, and I'm in the ring. We do the whole instructions. Murdoch is on my right, and Aldis is on my left. So we do the this match is scheduled for one fall with a 60-minute time limit. This is for the National Wrestling Alliance World's Heavyweight Championship. And we keep going with the instructions. And I said, any questions from the challenger? And Trevor Murdoch just looks straight at Nick Aldis, and I'm looking right at him, and he goes, "No." I said, "Any questions?" It's like, "Any questions for the champion?" He goes, "No, sir." I said, "Go to neutral corners. Best of luck to both of you." And that's the same belt, and we can say belt here.
Yes.
That's the same belt that was in TNA. So Ron the Truth Killings, Shamrock, AJ, Jeff Jarrett, those kind of years. And I held that belt up, and it's almost like when you're during the summer and you're just sitting in the shade, you're still baking, and somebody just puts this ice cold water down your back.
Yeah,
That's what it felt like when I held the 10 pounds of gold up. It was the biggest piece of validation I've ever had in my career, to where it's almost like these are for, in my mind, like, these are for the people who said, "You're too tall, you're too this, you can't do that, you're not going to do this, you're not going to do that." And I held that up, and I did the match. Everybody said it was great. Everybody said I felt like a main event. And I talked to, right after, everybody was gone up to the bar, and the ring is still set up, and I have my clothes on, and I'm still in the ring, and I'm just sitting in the corner. And I'm just like, holy crap, I just did that.
that's awesome.
And I messaged Dan Engler, who's signed to WWE, Rudy Charles from TNA. So I messaged him and I asked him. I said, I said, when you did a NWA World Heavyweight Championship match, how did you feel when you did your first one? And he said, I felt like I was a part of history. And I said, I just got that feeling about 30 minutes ago. And it's one of those things where they can't take that away from you. It's like no matter if you and that's what I tell the referees, there's a lot of people that are going to say you can't and you shouldn't. But when you have those moments that validate you and stamp you, they can't take that away from you. And so when I had that, it's something that you live with and you think about for the rest of your career and the rest of your life.
Love that.
What a story. What a story.
That's captivating as hell.
Yeah. I guess it's my turn now. We also came across this photo of you and Elia Markopoulos and then SmackDown star Carmelo Hayes.
Yes.
Any fun road stories with them?
Yes. So Elia and Christian, they're my guys. Elia, I spoke to earlier today. As a matter of fact, Elia, I've known him for 10 or 12 years. I've known Christian Carmelo since basically day one in the business. And it was, I think I had one of his not Elia, but I think I've had Carmelo's very first or one of his very first matches. But him, both of them and myself, all three of us were in Chaotic Wrestling at the time. And so for about 2 or 3 years, we would all ride together to chaotic events. So at the time, Carmelo Hayes was known as Christian Casanova. So when he first started, he was doing a full-on Michael Jackson gimmick. I'm talking sequin fedora, sequin vest.
Oh my!
And he did the moonwalk. Finishing move was Dirty Diana. I'm not kidding. But he did the Michael Jackson gimmick. So all three of us were in the car. And at the time, Don Callis had a podcast with Lance Storm. And Christian and I were fans of that podcast. And we came up with him going to the name, at least adopting the name for him as Top Talent. And all three of us, we would just bounce things off of each other, what we liked, what we, didn't like, our frustrations, what we're looking forward to. And the best part, I think, for me was it was a Cold Fury at Chaotic, and I was a senior official at the time, and Carmelo Hayes won a triple threat match for the New England Championship with Flip Gordon and Mike Verna, Josh Briggs, who's now in NXT.
Nice.
He'd just broken in. He'd only had a few matches, but he was with Christian at the time, so he was outside the ring. So I did the 1, 2, 3. That was Christian's. That was one of Christian's first singles titles that he won. And then Elia wins the Chaotic Heavyweight Championship in the main event. But it was like a surreal thing because, we're all riding together. We're doing matches together. We're bouncing stuff off of each other. And even after Carmelo got signed, we would still, talk with each other and, and more so he would talk with Elia. And then sometimes I'd ride with Elia to events and Carmelo would be calling Elia and, we would all talk. And, that was last December, and it was just good
Nice.
to catch up with him. And I was like, I have to get a picture. Like, and it's just for me, it's just to have that moment with two guys that you share, the memories with, and two guys that we all support each other
Yeah.
unconditionally, just to have that moment, and just to see him, Christian, doing well,
Mhm.
going from working Planet Fitness to a WWE contract,
Yeah.
that's hard work. But he put it in, and Ilya is one of the unsung hero. He started when he was 14 years old, and he's already a 20-year vet. But his mind is sharp. He's booking top rope promotions in the Fall River, doing something he wants to do, and he's producing live events too. So, but all three of us just supporting each other and having part of a brotherhood and a bond.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, all right.
Yeah.
My picture wasn't that bad either. I feel good about
I,
that.
hey man, I mean, back then it was, it's kind of weird. It's like when you start in the business, especially when you're a wrestler, it's, you know, wrestlers want to be, they won't say, I want to be me, but you're in the wrestling business. You have no idea what me actually is.
Yeah.
And so it's all right, we're going to throw this on the wall and see what sticks. But, Christian was very attentive, always kept himself in great shape. And, you know, going from, the Michael Jackson, the Dirty Diana gimmick, to evolving his character, and now to see him, where he is. But he's, he stayed humble. And a lot of people, in the business, or some of the people in the business, they've forgot to remain grounded. And I think, ultimately, that's, you got to remain grounded. You have to kind of recognize, okay, this is where I am, this is where I need to get better. But you definitely have to have that bond. And I'm happy just to see him and Ilya having success. And a lot of people now are having success. And you got to celebrate those big and little victories whenever you can.
Nice. Well, we have talked all things referee Tony S for about 33 minutes now. We're going to give you the chance to spotlight a couple of names, two or three people that we should be looking out for over the rest of 2024, whether there's wrestlers, ring announcers, any, referees, any talent that you think, deserves their flowers. Just give us a couple of names.
Well, that to me is like, that's because there's so much good talent out there. And I think to kind of put it to three, whether it be ring announcers, you know, I think for me, I like to group everybody in one. I
Okay.
think we're in this new wave of the business, to where people who haven't been recognized, they have been. So I want to encourage it, everybody, at least the fans, if go to, I tell people, go to an independent wrestling event. uh you know don't be afraid to talk to a ring announcer, or a wrestler, or a referee. Say hi to them. uh you know Another big thing, go to conventions. Some independent wrestlers are going to be there too. I think,
Yeah.
you know at least for me, ring announcers ring announcers it's almost weird to say that wrestling's a circus, but ring announcers, they're your MC. And there's a lot of good ring announcers. There's very few great ones, especially in the indies. Everybody knows Rich Palladino. RP. The fact that he going from the ECW days and still killing it today. You know, we have Adam. I mean, at least in New England, we have some good ring announcers. Learn from the best. Learn from Rich. He's the only one who could do it. But don't be afraid to, if you want to be a ring announcer, talk to Rich. I knew a young man who, when I was refereeing 10, 13 years ago, I remember he was sitting in the front row of his first independent show, and now he's on the West Coast as a ring announcer. And he made his way back up here, and I've known his parents, and I'll shout out his name, Jordan Castle.
Yeah.
He's from being a fan, going to every independent show you can think of, and now he's commentating with people that he's watched before. Um, but and referees, there's a lot of people that want to be referees full time, and there's also people that want to use refereeing to get in the foot in the door to be a wrestler, which is cool. Um, for referees, I think that at least in the Northeast, um, we have very good referees here. I think we have some that are striving to get to the next level. I think they just need an opportunity.
Mhm.
We have, you know, people like people. Ronnie Maestro's new; he's still killing it. Brendan Paul's good; he's off of injury. Gina Monty, who started as a fan in NEW, she's now a referee. She's killing it. Um, you know, I don't want to put myself over, but like Steve Carino said, get yourself over. Don't stop until you're done. I'll put myself up there because I think we're all wanting an opportunity. Wrestlers, oh man, there's you know what a you know what a great group of veteran wrestlers. DJ Powers is one of them. Mosh Pit's another one. Brandon Locke's just coming back. Ilya put in there. And there's young kids out there that just want to learn. But I'll say to the fans, honestly, um, if you ever want to know why they do what they do, just like I did, I just ask questions. And, don't be afraid to go up and say hi to somebody, ask them a question, get an autograph, because you know, we're all, most of us anyway, we're all people. we're all people, but we were all, we're all grown up now, but we were all, fans at one point
Yeah.
in the seats wanting to do this. And I tell the fans, hey, one day it could be you. Oh no, that can't be me. You don't know that. You could say that now, in 2 years from now. Hey, guess what I'm doing? I'm training now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I've had two friends. I've had a couple friends. Jason Fielding's one of them. He's been to local events, and a big friend of mine, and he just messaged me. You know, 2 months ago, he wants to start training to be a referee. So things are happening, and but as far as just everybody, no matter what coast you're on, there's great talent out there, and we're kind of spoiled. Honestly, we're kind of spoiled depending on the promotion that you're at, and you never know. You could be seeing a future WWE superstar or AEW superstar or Ring of Honor talent sitting in 6 feet away from you.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that everybody's, and I'll say this: people talk about people talk. At least for me, I've gotten very lucky and very blessed to be where I'm at. And that's me being humble, but that's also me recognizing that it could have been anybody else, but it was me, and that can happen to anybody. You can. I've seen fans go to wrestling conventions, and they're so pumped on meeting their favorite superstar. Somebody who I've seen people cry after meeting Stone Cold Steve Austin. I've seen
Yeah.
people sit in the barbershop chair only to get their bangs cut by their own father, which was the greatest thing I've ever seen. But it's happened. I marked out meeting Vladimir. So
Yeah.
it's, you never know. But I think ultimately we're spoiled. We're in a good place. but we just got to recognize that, wrestling found a place for us, and we can find our place in wrestling.
Well said.
Powerful answer. Yeah.
Well said.
Huh.
Well
You
said.
guys can steal that if you want. I didn't trademark that. The things I come up with, it's amazing.
So now we're going to ask you the hardest question on the pod.
All right.
We ask every guest that's on the show. It's a debate, so there's not a right or wrong answer. Eric will say that there definitely is a right answer. When you think of Mr. WrestleMania, is it Shawn Michaels or is it The Undertaker?
Oh man, Streak or the Heartbreak Kid? Well, for me, I'm going to have to go for Mr. WrestleMania. I'm gonna have to go with Shawn.
Okay.
Because here's why. Now here's why. I can make a claim for Shawn because Shawn, not saying the Undertaker didn't, but Shawn went out there and said, I'll give you Shawn like I've never seen before. Why? Because I can. And then he did it. And anybody who can survive probably the worst power bomb in the history of the business and then come back and beat Bret, then you can be Mr. WrestleMania. Now, I will say about the Undertaker, in this debate, there can be a 1A and 1B.
Yes.
And as far as Mr. WrestleMania goes, you can switch those answers anyway, and you wouldn't be wrong. But I think for me, it's Shawn, and the fact that when he had those back-to-backs with the Undertaker at 25 and 26, and I don't count when he made his return in Saudi.
Nobody does.
No.
Nobody does. But I think what a proper send-off for a guy that had a great first run, controversial as it may be, but had an even greater second run and is more remembered for his second run than his first. And I think when it comes to Mr. WrestleMania, I think it's Shawn, because Shawn, WWE, and you guys both know, WWE was the land of the giants, except Shawn. And for Shawn to break the mold like that, Bret being one of them, Austin being in pain, another one, but then, him and Jericho at 19, the triple threat at 20, Kurt and Shawn especially at 21.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't, but I wouldn't. But with Shawn and Undertaker, to me, it's Shawn, then Undertaker, and then there's a huge drop off to whoever number two is. And to be honest with you, I don't think that there could ever be another Mr. WrestleMania besides either of those guys.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I'll take that as a win on my part. That's fine.
A win is a win is a win.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Well, Tony, thank you so much for joining us. We greatly appreciate the time. Before we let you go, where can everybody find you on social media? What events do you have coming up?
All right. Well, you can find me on all socials as Referee Tony S, X/Twitter, Instagram. Referee Tony S, there's only one. That is me. If there's another one, please report it. I will be actually at Top Rope Promotions this Friday night in Fall River, Massachusetts. I will be officiating there. I will also be. There we go. I'll be at Top Rope Promotions this Friday night, May the 24th in Fall River, Massachusetts. I will be also at Atlantic Pro Wrestling in Newburyport, Massachusetts on June the 1st. As of right now, I'm not officiating on that show, but I will be in attendance. I'm producing, I believe, that night. I will also be at Lucky Pro Wrestling on June the 7th for our big Star Clash event. Eddie Edwards and Alicia Edwards are going to be part of that event,
Nice.
as well as all of our great talent. And I will also be at the Gathering 5. I'll also be there August 1st to the 4th in Charlotte, North Carolina. I will be there. The biggest gathering ever. Tickets are still available. Tickets are available at for Top Rope Promotions on social media, Atlantic Pro Wrestling on their social media, AtlanticProWrestling.com, Lucky Pro Wrestling for Star Clash, and The Gathering. Just search on Facebook The Gathering for all of our events. That's where I will be at. And for any promoters out there who would like to book me for a wrestling event, you can email me at refereetonyS@gmail.com. Serious inquiries only, because we're like Lance Storm here. We're serious for more than a minute. But I cannot thank you two enough for allowing me to be on and to share my story. And it's been great to rock and roll with you guys. I really appreciate it.
Well, we thank you very much, and we sincerely hope to have you join us again soon.
Hey, you let me know and I'll be there.
Consider it done. For referee Tony S, for the podcast dad and Mr. Cincinnati, that's going to do it for us tonight on this episode of the Wrestling Junkies Podcast. Make sure to follow at @mainevent_net for all things Main Event Wrestling Network. Follow us on X at Junkies Pod. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you know just one person that would enjoy this podcast, please share it with them. Once again, for referee Tony S, for the podcast dad and Mr. Cincinnati, we'll see you guys again soon.